Okay, so let's go over the switch block for the switch structure. It will look very identical to the if block here. Sometimes, you have to decide which is the better option, and in certain cases, the if block is the best. Sometimes the switch is the best. Sometimes the switch doesn't work at all because you only do a few things with the switch block in Java. So let's talk about that. I'm going to write a new program here. I'm going to close this and create another class. We'll call this, I should call it, make something more meaningful. I'll just say switch structures. The main program as well. So let's do something similar, except we use the switch. So we'll so the switch here, you can only test in Java anyways. You can only test for integer types. I mean, not integer, not usually integers, but any numerical data and strings and enumerations. Mainly just those three. You cannot test for true or false or objects or things like that. It wouldn't make a lot of sense. So I have here integer again, and we'll just call back the number again. We'll put that 10. Okay, and then you see how similar it is compared to the if-else block. So the switch, this one I'm testing for integer value. So you use the word switch followed by a pair of parentheses, so it's like a function, and then you'll follow by your curlies. Inside here is your condition. So what are you testing in there? Okay. When you test it, you're not testing for a true and false like you do with the if block. So if let's say a number equals 10, you get a result true or false. Here you actually testing for exact value of certain type. In this example, the number of type integer. So we'll switch the number, and we'll see if the number is equal to 10 or whatever that value is. So it has an exact value matching here. So it's like you have a jar of candies, or like like would be a perfect example of like the lottery, right? You pick a number and you guess what the number is. You pull up the number, and the number is a 10 or is it a 45 or whatever that is. So that's what the switch is used for. And then so you have the switch followed by the word case, and put a space here, and the actual value followed by a colon. Okay. If the first case is a 1, then you could say you put a colon there, and then run the block of code until the end of that code, and you can use a single line, use multiple lines. And then the end of that code will end when you put a break command. Okay? So case if it's 1, the colon means then run the following code until you reach the end of that break. If you put another case, once you break there, you can do for case 2. If it's a 5, for example, then you do the same thing. You run the code in there until you reach the break. And we'll just do one more here. Case it's a 10, then I'll put a break here. So we have 3 cases, either 1, 5, or 10. If it's a 1, then we'll just put echo on the system out. Number is 1. We'll do the same thing for the other 2. Sys out. Number is 5, and then number is 10. So in this case, you expect to be 10. So the number here is the actual value I'm testing. Okay, it's a variable name. It could be just a number itself. I could just say 10 here, and the number will be tested against those 3 cases, right? But usually you put a variable name here because that can be varied. And then you can run this, and we'll see what that looks like, and you'll see that we'll get a number 10. So that last statement here, in case where 10 is equal to 10, matches, so that it runs that piece of code. And it will stop when it reaches the case. So the break line here is like the end of that if block. We will exit out of that block, and then we'll move to the end of the case of the switch, which is down here, and then it's done. Okay? It's really important to put a break there. Sometimes you may not want to for various reasons. So unlike Visual Basic is kind of nice. I mean, I think Visual Basic has one of the nicest switch cases in programming, because it allows you to test for a range of numbers. I could say in Visual Basic, test case 1 through 5, and then you know, I can say if 1, I can do 1, 3, 5. Or you know, 8 to 22, 11, and all sorts of stuff in Visual Basic. It's really nice, but you can't do this in Java. So if you want to test a range of numbers, then you have to run like 10 cases if you want to test a number between 1 and 10, or anything inclusive 1 and 10. I cannot say case number is you know, greater than 10 or something like that. Well, maybe you can see. Let's put that there. Yes, here I can't do that. So Visual Basic you can. So you have to say if it's 1 and then 2 and so on. So if I don't put the break here, let's just say I forgot to put that there, and I just can comment this out, right? So it will ignore the break. And then let's just also say that my case is a 1 up there. My number is a 1. Okay? So when I do this, it's not a 1, or it's a 1, it's not a 5, it's not a 10. So I expect to say a number equals 1 here. When you run it, you get 2 statements, right? So if you don't put the break there, it will fall right through to the next case, whether that number is true or false. Okay? And if that's what you want to do, then that's how you do it. Don't put the break there. If you put the break, it will exit out of that, and then it will move to the next case. If there's 1, it will try to match it. If it's not, move to the next case, and so on. So, for example, you say if it's a number between 1 and 5, then you want to do something like this. Instead of saying that, I can say case equals 1. I'll do case 2, and then case 3, case 4. Right? So I put 4 cases here, 5 cases here. Any number between 1 and 5 will be captured in here, because I don't put the break line. So if I put a 1, 2, or 3, or even a 4, then 1 will be ignored because I don't print this out. But I will get the last printout here, which is number equals 5, because 4 is part of, it will move down the case statements until you find the first break. Okay, there's no breaks, it can go all the way down to the end of that code. So that's what you would do if you want to compare a range of numbers. And using the switch here. As you can see, it's not that friendly. So in this case, if you want to test a range number like this, it's probably easier with the if and else block. Like I said, if number is, you know, greater than equal to 1 and less than or equal to 5, then something. Imagine you have to test a case between 1 and 50, right? You put a whole bunch of case statements there. It's pretty tedious work. So in that case, this is not an ideal option. Okay, so you can also have a default case. So you put the word default at the end here, and then you can use the break or not. It doesn't really matter, because that's the catch-all. So this is the catch-all case, much like the else case. Okay, if none of the above matched, then it will fall to the last default case. And again, it's like the else case of the if and else block. Okay, so if I put here, I'll say system out default. Let's put default case, and let's just say we'll put a number that would not match any one of these. We could put like 40, for example. Right? If I put 40, then none of these cases matched, so it will fall to the default Okay, it will print out the default case in this example here. Okay, so if that's important, then you put the default there. Otherwise, you don't need it. It's not required. Again, it must be the last case. You cannot put that above any other cases. So in other words, I cannot put, this up here, right? I can't put that there. Or can I? I don't think you can. Yeah, so it'll give you an error. Oh, that's weird. Okay. It's odd. I didn't know you can do that in Java. Usually you won't let you do it in other languages. And even if it does, that's not ideal. That's not how you do it. So, interesting. I would expect it to throw an error. Okay, so you can test for numbers. You can test for strings. So we can do one here. Let's say string str is equal to trapple again. And then we'll test, instead of number, we'll say what to above here. And I'll comment these out, these numbers. And we'll just test for the strings. So we can say switch string. For the first case is apple. And we'll do a system out apple. We'll do another one here. Case number 2 will be the lowercase apple. And then we'll do case 3. Just put cherry in here. Then we have a default. None. And let's see what this gives us. So I have all of them. Why is that? Yeah, no break, right? So I'll put a break here. Save and run again. Okay. So as you can see, this one, you may wonder why, how come you say, as I told you earlier, that you cannot compare a string with a string, just, matching that actual value this way. Well, this is a little bit different. And so the case of it actually tests the value of the string and not the actual address, memory address of that. So, and it's also case sensitive. If I put, as you can see, uppercase A matches the first case. If I make that a lowercase a for apple, it should match the second one, the lowercase apple there. Okay. And we could test another one down here, actually, say case all uppercase. Right? When you do that, you can test for the string if you were concerned about uppercase or lowercase and all caps. And you can actually force the string here to be all uppercase or all lowercase. Okay, so I can say, I think you can do that before you put into the switch, or you can do right inside the switch here. I can say string, I want to force that to be all uppercase. So I can say uppercase here. Okay, so 2 uppercase. And then now string will be all uppercase, and it's going to match this case 4 here. And this is kind of nice, especially when you want to validate data. Like you want to force all your input to be all lowercase or all uppercase, so you don't have to worry about lowercase and uppercase in your words. Unless that's what you want to do with it, that's fine. But when you do a search, you can force it to be in either case. Okay, and that also helps you to prevent from having unexpected results as well. And just like the other the if block, you can also have nested blocks in here as well. So let's say if I match the uppercase for Apple here before the break here, I could do another case if I want to. Let me just do this. I have multiple lines before the break. I would say print Apple, and you can do another case if you want, if you have another variable to test, or if you have a test, if you want to test for like if block, say if it's Apple and all lowercase or uppercase, then you can also switch for the number, right? You can do this in here, so if you want to. And in case if it's 40 in this case, then you can say something like yay or something, right? And then default would be like no or something. So I have a switch case nested inside another case, and we get the again I've got a break, as you can see, right? So it says Apple, and then it matches 40, so we get the yay. Okay. And you can keep going. You can mix and match. You can mix cases with the if block and if block. You can nest the switch inside the if else. Okay. Either way, it's completely fine. Okay, so any questions on this switch case here? Again, you only test for numbers, strings, and enumerations. We'll deal with enum later. So you cannot test for true and false. Okay, so in other words, if I have a a Boolean in here, say Boolean found is equal to true. Okay, if I test switch found, okay, it doesn't do it because there's no point of doing that because it's only either true or false. You know that already, and there's not a lot of that many options, so there's no point of using the case here. So instead of doing this, you would fall back to the if block. Okay, so say here Boolean doesn't work.